Welcome back once again. On the last part, we have completed the entire Web3 connection and built the entire setup and utility function which allow us to communicate with the entire contract and Web3 model. Now we're going to start working on our actual functionality which allows us to communicate with the smart contract. So this is where we left. First thing we have to come back here in the context, and we have already done with the toaster and utility. Now we're going to start working on Web3 provider. So click here and we have to import a couple of things quickly. So let's import that. So first thing we're going to use the React context. So that's what I'm going to import. So let's create, and that's coming from React. So first one is going to be the create context, use context, and we're going to have use state and use effect. These are the four things we're going to get from React. Once we have that, let's move to the next one. And we're going to import the Ether package that's coming from Ether. Then we have to take the import of the packages from the Wing provider. So let's call this Wing, in which we have to import the user account. This will give you the details about the user account, means address and other information. Then we have to import the use chain ID, use connect, and use balance. These are the four things we need to import. Then we can come back here and we have to do a couple of internal imports. So we're going to import the entire environment variable. So first let's call this. So before we import the environment variable, we have to import the hooks we have developed. And that's coming from our toaster. That's for displaying the notification. So we can get that use toast. Perfect. Now we can come back here. We have to import our token ABI, and that's coming from our context, the same location. We'll say ABI.json. So if you come back here, if you go there, this is the ABI in which we have simply copy and pasted the ABI. So this is the ABI we have. Once you have the ABI, now you can simply come back here and we have to import the hooks we have developed. So that's coming from the provider, in which we have to import the use ethers provider and use ethers signer. So these are the two hooks we have which allow us to give the details about the wallet connect, so we can easily able to perform the transaction. So we have this one. Now we can to import, let's call this provider wing config, and we have to get the config. And this particular config will allow us to give the details that which network user is connected. So we can able to make that connection and we can able to get the address as well as the user balance. Perfect. Now we can come back here. We have to let's import, in which we need the utility function. So from there we have to import couple of things. So first one is going to be our error handler we have developed. The next one is going to be our ERC20 ABI and the third one is the generated, let's call this generate ID. So these are the three things we have, and that's what we have imported. Perfect. These are the important. So we have the internal import, we have the global import. We're done with that. Now we have to declare all the environment variables. So before we do that, let's build the context first. We'll say web3. We can come back here, and if you go back to the environment variable, here you will find we have all of this. So let's import the environment variable first. So we can come back here and let's import the token. So this is the one we have. Simply copy and let's call this T, and it's coming from process.env, and we have the environment variable. So we can simply copy this portion and paste here. This is the first environment variable. Let's replicate this one, and this will be currency, and we have to copy paste here and we can get the currency. So we already have it. Copy that one and paste here. Replicate this one, and this will be our, let's say, what we can do. This is the name, a symbol. Copy, and that's what we can paste here. Copy, and this one right up here. Replicate this, and we have to get the decimal, and that's what we can paste here. Copy and replace here. Replicate this, then we have to get the logo. Copy that one, paste here, and bring it here. This time we have to get, let's see, the domain URL. Copy and come back here and change this to domain URL. Simply copy the URL, and that's what you have to provide. So we got the domain URL. Now replicate this one. We can come back here and we have to get this token USD price, paste, copy and bring it here, and replicate this one. And actually we don't need this one, remove this one. So we got all of this state variable which we're going to use in our web3 provider. Perfect. Now we can come back here. Let's take a contract ABI. So we'll take this token ICO ABI, and we already have the ABI. So we'll take this token ICO ABI, in which we're going to simply call the ABI In this way, we can able to have the information about the API. Once we have that one, looks perfect. Now we can simply come back here and we can simply go further. So first thing, we have to simply create the Web3 context, and we already have the React context. So that's what we're going to use it. Once we have that, now we can come back here and we fall back and we have to get the contract address. So let's get the contract address first. We'll say contract address and we're going to import it from our environment variable. So simply copy and that's what we can paste. Come back to the environment variable and we already have this one. Simply copy and that's what we can simply replace here. So we got our contract address. Now we can get few more things. So this will be our RPC URL. So we'll say RPC URL and we already have that one. So we can come back here like this is the one, this one we have. Simply copy and that's what we can paste here. So we got our RPC URL and the contract address. Now we have to simply build a fallback, because if the user is not connected with the wallet but still we want to fetch the balance about the contract, that how many token got sold, how many token is left, what is the price. So these things we need without connecting the wallet. So we have to build the fallback URL. So let's come back here. Let's call that call fallback provider. And we already have the Ether package. So it's a very simple drill. We'll call this Ether Web3 providers, in which we have to simply call the method called JSON RPC provider, in which we have to simply pass the RPC URL. And that way we can able to have the URL in which don't require the signer object for getting the balance. Got it? Now we can come back here. Let's export our Web3 provider. And it's a simple drill. We can simply pass the children in that. And this is what we have. So this is the structure. We have imported all the important variables. We have declared all the important variables. Now we have to work on the state variable and we have to work on the functionality. So first, let's declare a couple of state variable which we're going to use internally, and all the hook which we have imported. So first thing, we have to simply come back here and we have to take the toaster. We'll say use toast. And from there, we can easily able to import the notify. So I hope you have followed the last video in which we have built all of this model. So we're going to simply call the method on each one of this. We have this notify. Now we can come back here. Now we have to use our Wing provider. So we can take that one. We'll say address and we'll need the is connected state and it's coming for use account. Then we have to take the chain ID and that's coming from our hook use chain ID. Then we can come back here. We'll take a variable call and this is coming from our use balance and it's going to take an object. So we have to pass the information about the network configuration, that which network user is connected. So we already have the details, the config file we have developed. And in that we can simply receive the balance of the user. Now we can come back here. We can check the connected state, whether the account is connected or not. So it will have multiple states. So we have this connect and we'll have this connectors, which is coming from use connect. Perfect. These are the all four hooks we are calling. Once you're done with that, now we can come back here and we have to get the state variable and we'll say recall. And this particular state variable, we're going to increment whenever there is a function call. So for example, that if the user called the buy function, so after completing the entire buying process, we have to simply run this internally. So it's going to reload and recall the function and change the data. That will make sense. Just follow along with me. So by default, it will be 0. We're going to increment that. Let's take another state variable. This will be called global loader. And by default, it will be false. Then this is our state variable. Now we can come back here and let's declare our provider and signer object. So we can come back here. Let's call this provider. It's coming from our hook we have developed. And we have to take the signer object as well. And we already have the hook for that. Use ether signer. Perfect. Now we can take this fallback URL. So let's build the internal fallback. So we have to follow the same thing. Provider, JSON RPC provider, in which we have to pass the RPC URL. So this is our hooks and the fallback. Now we can come back here and we have to take our state variable, because when we go to fetch the information from the contract, we have to store that so we can pass into our component. So let's declare those states. So let's take a state variable and let's call this contract, in which we'll have all the function of the contract. So by default, it will be null. Then we have to take another state variable. This will call account. We already have, by default, it will be null. Then we'll have the state variable called is connecting and we'll say false. Then we'll have the information state variable will say contract info, and this will contain all the information about the contract. So what we have done, first we have taken the state variable for the contract in which we are keeping the contract after making a successful connection. Then we are getting the details about the account. Then we are checking the connecting state. After that, we have to get the information. So it will be an object in which we have to structure the data which we want to fetch and store in the state variable. So let's come back here. First is going to be our token details. So we'll say token address, and we don't have it at that moment because we're going to fetch it and we're going to set that variable. That's the null. Then we'll say our TBC balance. It will be 0 by default. Then we'll take the ETH price and it will be 0. And we'll take the total sold is 0. So this is the 4 state variable we are taking, but we want to add more. Just keep it as it is as of now. Then we can come back here. We'll take this state token balance and it's going to take the same condition. We'll take this, let's say, user TBC balance. Let's make it capital B and it will be 0 by default. Then we'll have to say contract ETH balance. It will be null. Then we'll have the total supply will have null, and we'll have user ETH balance will have null. Then we'll have ETH price will 0, and we'll have a TBC balance will be 0. So these are the state variables we have, which we're going to update dynamically. So we have taken this variable. Now we can come back here and we have to take another state variable, and let's call this error. So when there is something goes wrong, we have to simply inject and set in the error state variable so we can display in our component. Let's call this error, and by default we can simply keep it null. Now we can come back here, and this is so far looks good. Come back here and we have to build the hook, like use hook. So first we have to initialize the function to get the contract object. That's the first thing, making the connection with the contract and get the contract object successfully. So let's build that particular hook. So let's call this, we can call that one use effect. It's going to take a callback function. And here we have to build the connection. So we'll say, and I want to call this particular hook in 2 conditions, when there is a change in the provider and the signer. So let's call that first. And it will take the array of argument. So you can pass multiple argument into it. But these 2 is important for getting the object of the contract. Now we can come back here and let's take the function. We'll say init contract, and here we have to build the condition. So we'll say if provider and signer exist, then only we want to execute the condition in this particular if statement. So we'll take a try and catch, and we can simply throw an error message if anything goes wrong. So we'll say error initializing contract, and we can throw the error message. Simple. And we can simply set the error to be the fail to initialized contract. Simple, not that complicated. Now in the try block we have to build the connection. So we can come back here. We'll say const contract instance, and we have the package ether package which we can use to communicate with the contract. So we'll say new ether contract, and we have to pass the 3 details. First is the contract address, second is the, let's say, token ABI, we'll say token ICO ABI, and the signer. Perfect. So we have the instant of the contract. Once we have the instant of the contract, now we can set that instant to our contract state variable, and that's the only thing we have to do right up here. So this will execute when the page will reload, and when there is a change in the provider and signer, we'll check, and we'll set that instant of the contract in the contract state variable. Perfect. And that's the only thing we have to do. And at the end, we have to simply call this particular function. Perfect. So what we have done, we have taken this use effect. We have built this particular function. We need this provider and signer to communicate with the contract to get the instant of the contract. So that's what we have. Perfect. That's the first thing. Now we have to take another use effect, which we're going to call, and we're going to fetch out all the data from the contract, that how many token is left, what is the token, what are the balance, which user is connected, what is the balance of his wallet. So those details about the contract, we have to get it. Remember, we have a function in the contract called get contract info. That function we're going to call it. So let's come back here. Let's take this use We can come back here. We'll take this use effect. It's going to take a callback function. And the same logic we have to follow. So first thing we have to pass the, like, when I want to trigger this particular event. So it will take an array of object. So it's going to be a contract. Then I want to check for address, provider, signer, and I want to call this recall. So when there is a change, there is an update in the recall state, we're going to recall this particular hook. So we have all of this. Now we have to build the function. So we'll take a variable and it's going to be a very simple function. So we'll take this const fetch contract info AC and let's build this particular function. So first thing what we have to do is we can come back here and set the global loader to be true. Then we have to come back here, take a try and catch block in which we can simply display the error. We'll say error fetching contract info, and we can come back in the try block. We'll say we can come back here. We'll say if we can come back here. We'll say set global loader to be false. Now we can come back here. We'll say const and get the contract instant. So it's very simple, current provider, and we have to check for two condition. If the user is connected, then we'll get the normal provider, but if the user is not connected, we have to get the fallback provider. So we'll say provider, else we have to go with the fallback provider. Now once we have the provider, we can make the connection with the contract. So we'll take a variable called read only contract and we can get the instance. So we'll take this ether contract and we can pass all of this three data like contract address, ABI of the contract, and we'll pass the current provider. Once we have that one, now we are ready to make the call to the functions we have in the contract. So let's call this info or wait. And the very first function we have to call this read only contract, and we have this get contract info function. This will give us all the details about the contract, which we can now extract the data. So we can come back here. We'll build this token decimal, and we can have this one called parse int, in which we can pass the info object. It will contain the token decimal variable. I hope you haven't forgot the contract video when we have developed the contract, where we have discussed this extensively. And I can simply pass the else. I can go with the normal 18 decimal, because most of the contract, most of the token we have on the Ethereum blockchain or EVM compatible chain, which follow the 18 decimal point. But you can simply play around with this value if you are have a different token variable decimal point. Once we have the token decimal point, now we can simply come back here. We'll take this set contract and let's call this set contract info. Here we have to update all the information because we have the information in the info. So we'll take this TBC address. Let's make this A, capital A, simply call, and we'll say info dot token address. Now we can simply copy this one, and I notice that here I made this small a, so make it capital. Perfect. Now we can come back here. We got this one, and we can make this changes. Let's call this TBC balance. We'll have the ether package already. We'll call this utils model, and we have to simply format the balance in a readable format, because it will come in the util in the big number. Okay, so we'll have this one. We'll call this format units, in which we can simply pass the balance, token balance, and the decimal. We got that one. Now we can come back here. We'll take this ETH price utils. We have to format that, and we can pass this ETH price with a 18 decimal. Now replicate this one, change this to total sold. This will be called total sold, and let's call this token decimal. Now what we can do is, we got this particular variable. Now we can come back here. So this is the fourth thing we have to update. Now come back to the next state variable. We can come back here, and this time we have to build a condition, because I want to check the balance of the user, and I want to check the balance of the user inside the contract. So for that, I need to have the address of the user. So here I have to make the check. We'll say if address and info token address is there. I need these two details to get the information about the user. Okay. So if this true is there, then I can build the instance of the contract. So let's come back here, call this token contract. So we'll call this ether package to get the instance of the contract. Token address, we'll have the ABI and we'll have the current provider. Once we have that, now we can able to check the balance of the user in this particular token contract. Now we can come back here. Let's call this const. And here we have to build this await promise dot all because we have to call multiple functions dot all, and it will take array of function. So we have to define all the functions. So first let's call this token contract. Order is very important. Token contract, we'll call this balance of, in which we can pass the address of the user. So we can understand that how much balance user hold of this particular token. Then we'll take the current provider and we can get the balance of the ether, like whichever network currency user is interacting with, we'll pass the address. So we'll get the balance of the user. Then we can call this current provider, we'll call this get balance, and we can pass the contract address. And at the end, we can simply get the total supply. So these are the three things we are these are the four things we are getting. First, we are getting the balance of the user, then the balance he or she hold in the native currency, then the contract balance and the supply. So let's call this user token balance. We'll call this user ETH balance, contract ETH balance, and the last one is the total supply, because that's the order we are following in the promise.all. We got that, all of this data, perfect. Now we can come back here and we can call this set token balance, and we can simply update these details in our state variable. So first one is going to be, let's deconstruct that. Then we can simply update. We'll say user TBC balance ether utils format unit, and we can pass the user token balance and the decimal. The next one is the contract ETH balance. Same thing we have to do what we have done above. So let me do that quickly. We'll pass the contract balance, replicate this, change this to total supply. This will be total supply, and we have the decimal. Replicate this, change this to user ETH balance, and replace this user ETH balance. Change this one to ETH price, and this will be info ETH price and 18 decimal point. And the last one, we have the TBC balance, and let's call this token balance, and this will be our token decimal. Perfect. I hope you have understood that what we are following, it's very simple. We are getting the information from the contract based on the wallet connection and without connection. So this is all we have here. We have the important data which we are extracting from the contract. Now we can come back here and we are almost done everything. We are done with the entire function. All we have to do is to simply check one more time. So we are calling this global one. We have the fallback. We have the read contract. Here we are getting the information. We have the decimal. Then we are updating our state variable. Then we are checking for wallet connection. If the wallet is connected, then we are calling this particular component and getting all of these details about the token and updating. Perfect. Now we can come back here, cut and paste here as well, copy and paste here as well, and we can simply call the function we have developed. So let's call this fetch contract info, and this entire hook is ready. So whenever the page will reload, this hook will call, and whenever there is a state change like contract, address, provider, signer, or recall will change, it will also call this hook. So this is what we have done. Now we can simply move to our actual function where we can allow the user to buy the token. So let's build that. So we'll call this, come back here. This is fine. Now we can come back here. Let's call this const buy token. It's going to be an async. It will take the amount, means the price, ETH amount. And here we have to build the entire logic. So first we have to check for the contract whether it's exists or not. We'll say if contract is there, not there, or address is not there, then we have to simply return, and we don't want to execute the function further. We'll say return null. But if it's there, then we can simply do and take this try and catch block, in which this is what we have. Now we can come back here. Let's call this toaster ID, and because we have to display the toaster that the transaction is processing, so let's generate that particular ID. So we can come back here. We'll call this notify, and we have a function on notify called start. This will take couple of arguments. So let's select this template literal. We'll say by token symbol and we'll say with currency we can provide. Simple, we are displaying this message. Got it? Now we can simply come back here in the try and we can build a function so we can call it. So we'll call this ETH value because we have to convert that into a big number and then we have to pass into the function. So we'll call this ether utils parse ether and we can simply convert that and we'll call this. Once we have the converted amount, then we are ready to pass into the function. So let's come back here. Let's call this transaction await contract and we have to call our contract function like buy token and it will take an argument. So we have to pass the value and we already have this ETH value. That what we're going to pass it, ETH value. And that's how we are passing the price, the money into the contract. Perfect. Now we have to simply wait for the transaction to complete. So we'll take this notify and update and we'll call this toaster ID. We'll give our argument. So it's a processing. And then we have to display our message. We'll say waiting for confirmation. And then we can come back here. We have to wait for the transaction to be complete. So we'll call this receive transaction.wait. Now we have to build a if statement to check whether transaction is completed or not. So we'll say, let's come back here. We'll if recipient.status is equal to 1 means the transaction is completed. Now we have to store the information in our local storage so we can inject in our front end. So let's take a variable called this token price and we already have this USD price which we are using for conversion purpose and just calculation. So we have this token price and then we're going to simply take this token received and we're going to simply do the multiplication. So we'll have this ETH amount we are going to divide with the token price. Now we can come back here. Let's call this transaction details and this detail we're going to store in our local storage so we can display in the front end component. So let's take this object and in which we have to define. So first one is going to be the time when the user have called the function. We'll call this date.now. Then we have to define the user address. Then we have to define the token in, that what exactly we have received. So we have received the currency. Then what we have given, the output is going to be the token symbol. Then the amount in, we'll have the ETH amount and what we have given as an output. So we have the like token received and we'll call this toString. Then we have to take the transaction type is going to be buy. Then we'll take the last one is the hash of the transaction which we have in the recipient transaction hash. So these are the data we are storing in the local storage, but you can store more data. So we have this. Now we're going to build an internal function which allows us to store the data. So let's come back here, call this save transaction to local storage. So this is the function we're going to develop in which we're going to pass the entire transaction details. Now we can come back here. Let's build this set recall. So after the successful transaction means after the successful purchase of the token, we have to simply update the entire data in the UI component and recall the function for fetching the data from the contract. So let's call this, it will take a callback function preview and let's remove this one. We'll say preview plus 1. Then we can come back here. We have to display the notification complete because it's a successful purchase. We'll display the ID, then the success and we'll display the message successful purchased. Let's convert into a template literal and we'll display the token symbol and the token. Perfect. Once we're done with that, now we can come back here and return the recipient and that's the only thing we have to do in the try block. Perfect. Now we can handle the error, all the possible check. So what we can do is we can come back here. We'll build the variable because we already have the global handler for handling the error. So we can extract that message that's coming from error message. Then we have the code and we have the error code and that's coming from our handler error in which we have to pass the error and the message, error object and the message. Buying token. So this is the function we are calling buying token. That's what the message we are passing to our handler as well as the error object. Now we can check the condition. So if you come back here, if you go back to the utils there, you will find that this is the function we are calling. And here we have built all the condition. Close this one, come back here. Now we have to simply build a condition check. So we'll say if the error code is equal to action rejected, means the user have rejected the transaction, then we have to throw this error message and set that. We'll say notify rejected, we'll pass the argument, the toaster ID, as well as the type and the message. We'll say transaction rejected by user. Simple. Got it? Now we can come back here, we'll take this return and we're going to return a null. That's the second condition. Now come back to the third condition. Here we have to simply come back here, we'll take this console.error and we can have a look the entire error message in our console. Then we can come back here, notify, we'll say fail, in which we can pass the toaster ID and the transaction failed. We'll say please try again with sufficient gas, and we can simply return the null. So that's the entire error handle, because most of the handling we are doing in our utility function. So this is the first function which allow us to buy the token. So first we are checking for the like this contract and the address, then the toaster ID, then converting the ETH and passing it to the function. We have all of this processing, waiting for the transaction to be complete, and this is what we have. And here we have all the other stuff. Now we have to simply develop this particular function called save transaction to local storage. Simply copy that one, and that's what we can come back here. Let's call this save, and in which we have to receive the data. So we already have the data, transaction data, and here we have to simply build that. So first we have to take a variable called existing transaction, and we have to get the data from the local storage. We'll say JSON parse, we'll say local storage get item, and this is the ID which we are assigning. We'll say token transactions else. So first we are getting the information, the array of the data from the local storage, and then we're going to inject in that. So we'll say existing transaction push, and we have the data which we are receiving, and we're going to push into that. Then we can come back here, we'll say local storage set item. Here we have to call the name, same name, and then we're going to simply push the data. We'll say json.stringify and the existing data. Then we can come back here, we'll take a variable console.log, and we're going to simply throw the message. We'll say transaction saved to local storage, and we'll display the transaction data so we can see. What we can do is let's wrap this into a try and catch block. So if anything goes wrong, let's cut this, paste here, copy and paste here as well, and let's throw the error message and change this message to, let's say, fail to save transaction to local storage. So this is our save function we have. Close this one and close this one. So this is the two function we have built, the main function and the internal function. Now we can simply do one thing. We can simply copy this function, because buy token function, because it's going to have the similar structure. So simply copy this one and paste. I'll simply come back here, paste, and what I can do is I can simply remove this section, this portion, and here we have to simply update the functions and the data. So we can come back here. First thing we have to update the function name. So let's call this update token, it's a capital T, token price, and in which we have to receive the new price. And this is fine, we need to have the toaster, but change the message. This will be called updating token price. Now we have this one, and we can call this one parse parse price, and here we have to simply pass the new price, copy and paste here. Then we have to simply change the function name. So this function, so let's come back to the contract and let's see what we have called. And if I come back here, and this is the function we have in which we are passing the new price. So let's copy the token price, and that's what exactly we have to pass. And we have to simply remove this one. We don't need to pass the data in the form of object. We have to pass straight away the converted price. So we'll parse price. That's it. Now we have to simply update all of these messages. So we can call this one to confirming price update. This is fine. We are still getting the error messages. And let's come back here, and here we have to build that if condition, because we have to check for the transaction complete. So let's call this if receipt.status is equal to 1, means the transaction is successful. Then we can simply display this details. So we'll take this set recall, and we can update the state. Once we have that, then we can display the notification for the complete update. We can pass the message token update. Let's complete the template tutorial, and we can simply give the new price, and the currency. Perfect. Now we can simply come back here and we can return the recipient. Good. This is absolutely fine. We can simply change this message to be like updating token price. And this is fine. User can reject the transaction. This is good. And here we have to simply change the message. So let's call this price update failed. And we can change this to check your permission because only admin can update. And the rest of the thing is absolutely fine. Just keep it as it is. So this is our update token price function. Looks good. Now we can simply close this one and we have to copy this function and paste here. And in this function, we're going to set the token. So in which function we're going to receive the token address which we want to sell. And this is fine. We can change the message setting token sell. And we don't need this one, remove this one. We can pass the token address straight away. So this is the name we are calling to our function in the contract. Simply copy that one. And that's what we can paste. And here we have this paste here. Change the message. We'll call this token. This is fine. We can change the message. Remove this one and call this sell token updated successfully. And this is also good. Now we have to simply update this message. Call this setting sell token. Okay, this one is fine. And here we have to replace this one. Fail to set sell token, and we'll say the address, and rest of the thing is absolutely fine. Perfect. So this is our set token update. Now what we can do is we can simply copy this one and paste here. In this function, we're going to simply call withdraw all token. So this function will allow us to withdraw all the token from the contract. And we can don't need to pass any argument because we are not receiving anything. This is fine. We can change the message. The same drill we have to do. Withdrawing token. This is fine because in this particular function in the contract, we are not receiving any token. So we can simply copy the function and paste here and remove this argument. Change the message, confirming with like withdrawal. This is fine. Let's change this to all tokens withdraw successfully. This is good. Let's change this message. Withdrawing token. This is fine. User reject, and we can simply copy and we can paste here. Withdraw, and let's change this to try again. Perfect. So this is all the code we have for the withdrawal all token. So we are done with that. Close this one, copy and paste here. Now we have to build the rescue function. So we'll say rescue tokens. This is good. Let's call this rescue, and we can come back here and we are receiving the address. So let's receive that. This is fine. Now we can come back here in the function and let's see what we have called. It's called rescue token and we're receiving the address. It's fine. So copy this one and that's what we have to call it. And we have to simply change these messages. Operations. Good. We'll call the token rescued. Change this to rescued me. And this is good. Please try again and call this check the token address. Perfect. So this is the rescue function. Fine. Don't need to make many changes. Looks good. Cloud close this one. Now we have to build some utility function because most of the contract function we have built. So we have to build some utility function as well. So come back here and let's build the format address because we have to display the address properly in the component. So let's call this address. That's what we're going to receive. And here we have to build that one. So first thing we have to do is to check if if address is there. If the address is not there, then we have to return empty string. Else we have to simply format that. We'll take this return in template literal and we have to take the few characters from the like first of the address and the last of the address. We'll take this sub string and we have to pass the length we want to extract. So let's call this let's say 0 to 6. Then we have to take the last one. So we'll take this address substring in which we have to give the address dot length and we're going to simply give the number. We'll say 4. So it will have a like few characters from the first and few characters from the last. So this is the format address. Now, what I can do is let's build a function which allows us to check that whoever is calling the function, whether it's admin or not, because we're going to display few details, few components based on the admin. So let's build that. So we'll take this is honor, we'll take this async, and here we have to build that. So we can simply come back here. First, we have to check the contract and the address. So we'll say if contract is there, not there, and the address is not there, then we have to simply return the false. Else, we can take this try and catch and we can simply catch the error. So we'll take this error message. We already have the handler. We can pass the error object and the message. We'll say withdraw and just give this one for our time being. And we can come back here, console log out the message. If it's not the admin, then we don't want to block the execution of the function. We just want to display the message. It's totally optional. And we can simply return false. If it's a admin, then we have to build the logic. So first we have to get the address of the owner. We already have a function called, like we have a variable called owner in our contract. So if I come back here in the contract, we have taken the state variable and that's what we are calling. So we are call this address public, means it will automatically give you the getter function. So we are calling this one straight away. So we'll have the address of the owner. Now we have to simply do the check. We have to match it up with the current address with the owner. So it's going to return either true and false. So we'll take this owner address to lowercase, and if it's equal to the address, we'll call this to lowercase. So it's going to return either true or false. If it's false, means it's not the owner, but if it's true, means it's an owner. So that's the only thing we have to do here in this particular function. Perfect. We're done with this. And I want to build one more function for formatting the ETH amount. So let's come back here and let's call this const format to format token amount, and let's call this token amount format. It will take the amount and the decimal is going to be 18. And here we have to simply build the if the amount is there, then we have to execute, otherwise we have to throw the 0, otherwise we have to simply return the actual formatted amount. So we already have the ether package we call the utils, and in which we have to pass the amount. The same thing we have done on the top. So we'll take this amount decimal. Okay, I noticed something. So it's taking a double bracket. So I have to simply remove this one. I can simply remove this one, move paste here, remove this, and save it. Now it's perfect. And that's the only thing we have to do. So I hope you have understood that this is the owner and this is the formatted amount we have. Now, what we can do is, so we are done with all the important function. Come back here and let's build the value, the function, the variables we want to export from this provider so we can utilize it in our components provider. But before we do that, let's build a function which allows the user to add the token in the MetaMask. So let's come back here. Let's call this add token to MetaMask. And we'll call this async function. Now here we have to call the Web3 providers and we have to simply store the information in the MetaMask wallet. So we can come back here. Let's call this const toaster for displaying the notification. We'll have a start and we can display the adding. We can display the symbol token to MetaMask. And this particular function will only work in the MetaMask because MetaMask has this API which we can call. But most of the wallet provider don't have this public API. So it will only work on MetaMask. We have the toaster ID, then we can take the try and catch and we can build the entire function. So we'll call this variable was added. So this will be either true or false. So we can call this await window dot ethereum and we have to make a request to the Ethereum object so it can pop up the MetaMask. And here we have to pass all the data. So we can take this method. So we want to call the wallet watch asset. Then we have to pass the params in which we have to pass the type is going to be a ERC20 token. If it's an empty NFT, you have to give the NFT. Then we can give the option. In the options, we can pass the parameters like the address. So we already have the link to my address. Then we have to pass the symbol, token symbol. Then we have to pass the decimal. And then we have to pass the image of our token, the logo. And that's the details we have to pass. Now we have to make the check whether the token is added or not. So we can simply build a if statement. We'll say if was added. If it's successful, then we can display this complete and we have a message successfully added token. Else we can go with the same message. We'll say notify complete and we'll say token failed to add it. What we can do is come back here in the error and then we can display the error message if anything goes wrong. So first we have to get the entire error in the console so we can check what exactly went wrong. Now we have to use our error handler. We can get the error message and the code coming from our handler error. We can pass the error object and the message. We'll say token adding error, addition error, and let's get this one. Perfect. Now we can collect this token, notification will say failed, and we can display the message. We'll display the R2 ID and we can display the message transaction failed and the actual error message we are getting called message. And if it's equal to undefined, then we can call this not supported, means the wallet is not supported this particular API, or else we can go with the error message and we'll display that. Perfect. That's what we have this particular function. So this one is a really powerful feature which allow the user to add the token in the MetaMask. So I hope you have understood. So we're getting the ID, building the object, then checking the condition and adding it. Perfect. Now we can come back here and let's build the value which we want to export from this component. So let's come back here. Let's take a value and here we have to simply take the object and in which we have to define all the function, the variable we have declared. So first one is going to be the provider, then we have the signer, then we have the contract, then we have the account, it will have an address, then we have the chain is connected, which we can check from the account and we can check it from the contract. If this true state doesn't exist, means there is no connection. Then we can check for is connecting, then we'll check for the contract info, contract token balance, error, recall, well global loader, buy token, update token price, set sell token, and this function does not exist. So let's copy this one and check is there any problem. So let's come back here and I notice one thing. I call this update token price. I have to change this function name. Like this one is the sell token. So simply copy and that's what we have to paste here. Now it will have the function. We have it now. Come back here. We'll call the withdraw token. We'll format address, format amount, and the last one we have is the honor, and we have the set recall. We have the add token to MetaMask. So this is all the function we have, which we are receiving in our value, which we can pass down to our context provider. So we can take this return. We'll build our context provider. Let's close this one. And we can pass this value. And we'll say value. So this is our context provider. Hope you have understood, in which we can pass the children. Perfect. Now we have to simply export. So we'll say export const use web3, where we have to take that context web3 use context, in which we can pass the web3 context we have developed context, and here we have to handle if the context is not there, and we have to simply handle the error. So we'll throw a new error and we can call this use web3 must be used within a web3 provider, else we can return the context normally. Let's have a default export as a web3 context, and that's the entire code we have coded in this particular section. So with that, I hope you have followed so far. Every single thing is looking good. We have first imported the packages, we have done the internal import, imported our environment variable, build the context. Here we have the setup for the fallback, and here we have all the hooks we have imported, and that's what we are calling building all the logic, all the connection state variables. That looks good. We have the initiate contract, which will give us the object of the contract. We have the fetch, which will give us all the data about the contract. We have the buy function, store, and all of the things looks good, format, and pretty well. So I hope you have understood that what we have done. This one is a quite huge part of our project, and this one is the most important one. We're going to test that every single thing. So let's come back here. Let's have a look. So we have called all of the function we have in the contract. So let's close, come back here, close this one, and we can come back here. Let's close this one as well. So we are done with the entire Web3 context provider. Now we can come back here, come back here in the package.json file, and let's do the installation. So we can check that all the setup we have done, whether it's working perfectly or not. So we can come back here. You can see this is the packages we are using. Open up your terminal. And first thing you have to check your node version. So if I check my node version, this is what I'm using. It's the latest one in the front end side. So I'm going to do the installation of the package. So just wait. This might take a little bit time depending on your internet speed. So just wait. And finally, we are done with the installation. You can see I'm getting a couple of warnings. Simply ignore that, not that important, because we are focusing on stability. And it will show you some of the command to execute. Simply ignore that. Now we can simply come back here and clear the terminal. And you can close this one, come back to the node module. And here you will find all the packages we have in our environment. That's all we have installed successfully. Now we can come back here and open up your terminal, and this is the command we have to execute, the dev environments. Type npm run dev to see our application is working absolutely fine. So simply copy this one, and open in your browser. Minimize this, come back here, paste here, and hit enter. And you will find that currently I'm getting this particular error. This means that so far, whatever setup we have done, every single thing is working fine. Our package is working fine. So this particular error we are facing because of the typo. I can see the typo I have done. The E is missing. So what I can do, you can simply do the console to see all the logs. So here you will find some server error. It's not that important because we're going to simply provide the RPC URL. We haven't provided yet, but so far every single thing is good. So it's a very easy fix. Can you guess what is the problem and how you can fix it? Can come back here, and there you will find that this is the Web3 provider we have done. And I can come back here, and here we have the Rainbow kit. So it's E dark theme, and that's what you have to call it, and paste here. And this will fix the issue. Save it, reload the page, and you will find our application is looking absolutely fine and working fine on our locals 3000. If you zoom a bit, you can see it looks good. Let's bring it to normal. Now we can come back to our code. Now come back here, and now we can start working on our index file. So let's close this one, and let's start working on our home page first. So we need to import a couple of things. So looks good. Come back here. Let's import our use state and use effect. Then we can come back here. We have to simply import our header, and that's coming from next head. Then we can come back here and we have to simply import, and this one is coming from our component homepage dash index, in which we need two things as of now, like the header and the hero section. So let's call this header and hero section. Perfect. Now we can come back here. We'll build the environment variable. We need to have the token name. So let's call this token name, and it's coming from our environment variable process.env. And if I come back here in the context web3 provider, here we have imported. I can simply get it from here. Simply copy this one, and that's what I can paste. Okay, it's a token logo, but I need the token name. So I can come back here in the environment, and I have this one, copy, paste here. So I got the token name. Perfect. Now I just want to have a default export. So let's cut this and paste here. And let's call this function. I don't want to have the arrow function. Remove this one, and I can simply remove this, save it. Now we have the default function export. Now we can start working. So first, what I'm going to do is let's work on the theme, light mode and dark mode. So let's come back here. Let's take a state variable, and let's call this is dark mode. By default, it will be false. And we're going to build a couple of functions. So let's build the hook first, and in which we have to check that type of window is equal to undefined. Then we have to simply return nothing, and here we will the try and catch. So it's a very simple logic. What we are doing, we are checking the variables in the window object in the local storage, and then we are performing the light and dark mode. So let's do that very quickly. So we'll say save mode, and I'm going to get the data from the local storage, and let's call this to dark mode. Now I can come back here. Let's take a variable called system prefer dark. So I want to check that what the user is using in their system. So based on that, we're going to provide so let's call this window match media in which we have to call the method. So this is the method we have called prefer color and schema, and we have to give the dark and call this match. Simple. Now we can come back to the error. We'll call this system prefer dark, and I can see it's a capital D. Let's make it capital D, and by default it will be false. Okay, I think I made a mistake. Okay, I made a mistake. So come back here. I'll go and fix it. So let's call this dark. It's dark mode, and I'll pass this. So let's take a variable. Come back here, and let's make it dynamic. So we'll take a variable called should user dark mode, and we'll call the save mode equal to be false. Else we can go back to default, and otherwise I can take this true. Simple logic, and that's the variable I'm going to pass it. So based on the user preference and the mode he saved, by toggling, based on that we're going to simply set the variable. Or you can go with the fixed one, but I want to make it dynamic because this data is already stored in the local storage. So now I can come back here and build a system. So we'll say if user dark mode, then I can simply call this document get element, we'll call class, and then we can add the class called dark. Else we can simply remove the class called remove. Very simple. Now I can see there is a problem right up here. So I mismatched. So this is fine. Here we have the save mode. This is good. Here is the problem. So like this will come in try and catch. So I'll simply cut this one and bring it all the way down. And I can see I get this one as well and paste it here. So now it's good. And I can come back here and there is a problem. So let's come back and let's make it false by default. And here we can simply come back and take and try and catch. And I'll simply copy and paste here. And then I can simply call this window function on it. This is perfect. And the next one we have this one, system prefer, cut this one and paste here. Looks good. Now this function is accurate. Checking this, they have the block system, then we are updating. Now we can come back here. We'll take this console.error and we can display the error message in the console. It's not that important. We'll say error initializing theme and we'll get the error object. Then we can simply call this set to true because we are by default I'm going with the dark mode, but you can go with, so when the user will visit your application, by default it will be in dark mode, but you can go with true if false, so it will be displayed in the white mode. And that's all we have. Simply cut and paste here. And this is fine. This is the entire hook for the theme, which get the information from the local storage and set into our environment variable. Now we can come back here and let's try to build the toggle function and the apply theme. So we'll call this apply theme. It's going to take the dark mode, means what kind of mode we have. So we'll say dark. We'll say if type of document is equal to undefined, then we go with nothing. Otherwise, we'll build this condition and we're going to simply call the model. So we already have this. We already done the hard work. Simply copy and we have to update the state. Else we have to simply remove the dark mode. That's the apply theme function we have. And now we can start working on the JSX. So let's make it side by side so we can see what exactly we are working on. So I can click on the localhost. You can see it's local is fine. Now I can start working on the JSX straight away. So come back here. Let's take the class. And first we'll have a dynamic one because we have to display the toggle between dark and mode. So let's take the height first, screen height, and we'll say if dark mode is true, then we want to go with the background black and we'll have our text color white. Else we can go with the background white and we'll have a text gray 800, and that looks much better. You can see looks better now. Now we can come back to the transition and call this color, and duration is going to be around 300. So perfect. That's what we have applied globally on the main component. Now I can simply change this to the header because I want to display the logo and the title. That's what I can do. Means the fab icon. So let's display the title of our application. So I'll go with the token name and I can give this text, but you can give whatever text, whatever tagline you have for your token. So we'll say brightening AI with decentralization. And let's add a description as well, the metadata. So let's call the name is going to be description. And let's add the content. And for that, I'm going with this one, token ICO tab, but you can add more details about your token. And here I want to display the fab icon. So I already have the image in my public folder. I'll go with that and then change this to be icon. And if I save it, if I see, you can see the image and the tagline is working fine. It's looking fine. So our icon and the text, all the details are looking fine. Now what I can do is I can come back here and we can take our header component. So let's take this header in which we have to pass the prop. So it's going to be the dark mode or the theme state. That's what I'm sending. And I also want to send the toggle. And I guess I haven't created this function. So this is the function we have to create. So let's come back here. Let's try to create a function. So it's going to be a very simple function. Come back here. We'll call this toggle dark mode, in which we have to simply call some of the states. So first we're going to take a variable called new mode, and we already have the is dark mode on. Then we have to simply set that to be a new mode, and then we can call the apply function with the new mode. Then we can take a try and catch. We'll call this local storage set item to be the dark because that's the keyword, and we can pass the value, which is the new mode, and convert it to a string. We can handle the error, so we can simply console log out the error if anything goes wrong. So we'll say error saving theme preference and the error, and that's it. So copy this one, and that's what we have to pass in our prop. So this is our header section. You can see the header components are reflecting fine. This is good. Now I have to display the hero section, so that's going to be in the main section. So let's take a main tag. Inside that, we're going to take the hero section. We'll say hero section, close this one, and let's send the prop. So we have to send the theme. That's the only thing we have to receive. And because all the function call we're going to do inside the hero section, and that's the only thing as of now we have to do here. So looks great. These are two components reflecting absolutely fine. Our application is working. Now we're going to start working on the header. After that, we're going to work on the hero section. So let's close this one, come back here, and we can come back to the component, go back to global, and then we have the header. And this is what exactly we're going to work now.